Hello, this is Craig Mertens, Director of Product Education for Inktobo, the parent company of GraphicsFlow. Welcome to the webcast today. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the stock art capabilities of the GraphicsFlow platform. But we are logged into my GraphicsFlow account. And you'll notice if you are new to the application, it won't look out of the ordinary for you. But if you've been using the GraphicsFlow application for a while, you notice we did a little bit of remodeling on the user interface. And you will see at the very top of the GraphicsFlow web app, design ideas, followed by clipart, followed by fonts. So all of the stock art is at the top now. And we know through our metrics that the number one thing that people are utilizing GraphicsFlow is for stock art. So we reordered it. So stock art was kind of the priority and the first thing you see when you log in. We moved my art down below stock art. It's where you store all your files. And then we also added another link here to Art Portal. So it makes it really easy for you to access your Art Portal simply from this link. And there's also a little ellipse button here. If you want to copy your Art Portal link to put it into an email, you can do that from right here. If you want to view your Art Portal, you can do that. Or also if you want to manage your settings from your Art Portal, there's just a quick little link. But if you just click on this right here, it's just going to go to your Art Portal. And there you go. So one of the things that I think is kind of interesting about this new layout is putting the focus on stock art and clip art and fonts. You know, in its purest sense, what is GraphicsFlow? It's a content delivery system. It does a lot of other things, but in its pure sense, that's what it is. It's content delivery. So we went and put the focus and the emphasis when you first log in right here on the artwork. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, what are the types of artwork that you are going to find in GraphicsFlow. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of tips and tricks, best practices for searching. So there's three types of content that's available in GraphicsFlow. And I'm actually going to start at the bottom. I'm going to start with fonts here. And I'm just going to click on fonts. Built into the application right now, there's 374 fonts. We're getting ready to do a major font update. So that number is going to go from 374 to 561. That's a pretty big jump there. The fonts are all available for individual download. So if you click on the little ellipse button here and you just wanted to download that font, you could also add it to an art approval. And I'll talk about that in a second because I had an interesting response from a client yesterday. But this is where you would go and look through fonts, and you have the ability to search. So if you knew, you know, like the first few letters of a font, you wanted to search for a font, you can do that. I just type in the word American and yep, there's your good old Captain America font. And there's a couple of variations of that font. If you want to clear that search, you can just backspace over it. But you can always download individual fonts, but that would not be the way I would recommend to utilize the fonts. What I would recommend is going to the Download All Fonts button right here. And whether you're using a Mac operating system or a Windows operating system, we're going to download a zip file with all the fonts on it. I'll just put this into my downloads folder there. So I'm going to download that zip file. And once that's downloaded, I'm going to click on Show in Folder. In Windows, same thing. In Mac, you can just right click on it and extract it. So we're going to extract all the fonts from that zip archive. And then you can install them. Now, what I would always recommend doing when you're installing this master font set is I would recommend making sure any of your graphics programs are closed. It's not going to hurt anything, but you won't see those fonts refreshed into your graphics program, whether it's Corel or Illustrator, Affinity Designer, Inkscape, whatever you're using. You won't see those fonts refreshed into your application until after you reopen it. So you might as well just shut them down. And so here's the extracted font set. I'm just going to double click on that. I'm going to go in the fonts folder here. And here's all the fonts. And what we've done is we've categorized them by style. So each set of fonts is in a style category. If you're going to install them, there's a real easy way to do that. If you just go into this folder and you click on *.otf, that's going to pull up all the open type fonts there. And then if you just do a select all and right click in Windows, it's a little bit different in Mac, but you can just click on install and you can install all these fonts. Now, one of the things that's really important when you're installing this, you're going to get this little button right here that says, hey, this font is already installed. Do you want to replace it? And you're not going to want to do that. If the font's already installed, there's no reason for you to replace it. You would click on do this for all current items. So make sure that's checked. And then what you'd want to do is you'd want to say no to that so that you're not having to over install over the original font. It's not hurting anything, but it's not necessary to over install and create a copy. So I'm going to say do this for all current, and I'm going to say no, I do not want to replace. And in this case, I'm not really going to stop. I'm not going to really install anything because I already have all these fonts installed. The other set of fonts that you want to do a search for is TrueType fonts. So asterisk dot TrueType fonts. Click on that. It's going to pull all those up. That's the majority of the fonts. Same thing. Select all. Right click and hit install. It's also likely when you first signed up, we sent you a link to this folder to download. So you can do it within the app anytime you want, or you have the link that you got when you did your onboarding with your account manager. It doesn't really make a difference, but it's always nice to know that if you have a new computer, you can just go over here and download all these files. Alternatively, you could just install a group. So if I went into this folder and I just wanted to install these chisel fonts, I could select them and right click and install those as well. So the fonts are going to work the best if you've installed them. Here's why. If you're using, let's say, Adobe Illustrator, or Inkscape, or Affinity Express, the fonts are going to work differently in each application. So in the case of Adobe Illustrator, you can open up a native Adobe Illustrator template where the text is live. If you're missing the font, you're going to get a message that says, hey, there's no font installed. Do you want to try to locate it or substitute it? That's pretty annoying and not particularly efficient. So just installing all the fonts is going to prevent that from happening. In CorelDRAW, it's a little bit different because when you download the CorelDRAW version of the file, the font is actually embedded into the document. And you'll notice that if you're in Corel and you see a little asterisk next to the font in the property bar list of fonts, that means the font's not installed on your system. It's embedded in the document. So you're not going to get a font substitution, but you can't go to the font list and start typing in and using that font. You'd have to have it installed to do that. If you're using an alternative vector graphics program, likely you've edited the design in the stock art customizer, and you're going to download a PDF that you can edit in Inkscape or Affinity Express, or in theory, any of the online vector applications. It's important to have the font installed on your operating system because that text isn't going to be live. And so if you want to change the text, you're just going to have to retype it utilizing that same font. So it's certainly not as convenient to make those edits offline as it is to do it in the stock art customizer. And we'll show you why that is in just a little bit. I mentioned I was going to come back to this idea of adding fonts to an art approval. I have a client, and they had submitted he put in a tech ticket, and it ended up landing on me, and it was really interesting. The customer asked me, says, "Hey, I got this design that came into my design request from my art portal, where the customer just said, hey, listen, I'd like to have the word love fueled in the Blossom regular font, because in Art Portal, if you add the ability to search through fonts, the customer can add that font. If they go down here to design ideas and say fonts, and in this case, what they did is they selected the Blossom font, and I think they did the Blossom regular version, which is right here. And they said, hey, can you type this in? What did they say? I think they said, I would like this in this font at 1x4 with the words love fueled. Okay, so this is how it came in to, here, we'll actually do that so I can show you what it looks like when it comes through. So I'm going to add that. I'll just put that, I'll just send that through my personal email address, and we'll just send that through. So this is what he got in his art request. So that art request just came through. I'll go down here to design requests, and I'm going to click on it. And so he was wondering, well, hey, where do you go to to edit this template. Well, it's not a template. All it was the customer going in and requesting that particular font with specific size and dimensions and the word love fueled. And I emailed them back and I said, hey, listen, super easy. You can just go into your CorelDRAW or Illustrator, whatever your program is, and then just type it in, because we had the font installed. So all I had to do is just type in love fueled. There we go. I think that's spelled right. Seems kind of like an odd word, but I think that's spelled right. Yeah, it is. And just change it to that font. So I'm just doing this in Corel, but you can do this in any graphics program for that matter, if you had the font. And so once you change it, then what I did is I went over here and put in the dimensions. So they wanted it 1 inch tall and 4 inches wide. And that's how we ended up with that. So it's not but I thought it was kind of neat that the customer, was utilizing the portal for just word art. This is what we call word art, picking a font, telling you what text you want. That's a super easy thing to do. And if you're lucky enough to get an order like this, it's pretty easy on the production side. You could cut this in vinyl or, do it just a simple little embroidery design. You have a lot of latitude with that. So don't count out the fonts when you're, collaborating with your customers on artwork, because in some cases they're going to just want word art with the font. And they might also specify a piece of clip art. They could have very easily gone in on this art request and specified, hey, I'd like this font with this piece of clip art. So that's another thing they can do. So we kind of covered what fonts are all about here, and kind of recapping real quick, make sure your fonts are installed. That's it. That's really important, because then you won't have to worry about font substitutions, and then you can use them with all your design apps, which is great. And if you happen to have an embroidery program that uses TrueType or OpenType fonts, something like, maybe the drawing software or Wacom, hey, these became embroidery fonts for you. So that's a pretty handy thing. So next up, we're going to talk about clip art. And so I want to talk a little bit about, what is clip art, and kind of in our world, what we consider clip art to be. If you go back through the history of the word clip art, it comes from the old newspaper days where people had an image on, typically a black image on a white background, and you'd actually cut around it with scissors and you'd lay that up. And usually people would utilize, believe it or not, camera shots to enlarge and reduce images. So they actually had a camera, and you'd pull it out if you wanted to do a really small image, and you'd move the camera in. It actually hovered over the top of the graph. We used to have a camera like that in our screen printing business. And when you moved it in, it made the image bigger. So they called it clip art, because you literally cut it out and put it down and photographed it. And that's how we did color separations back in the day. And so that, kind of where the word clip art comes from is this concept. But in our world, clip art is a term that most people recognize, but this isn't like traditional clip art. This is what we call production ready digital art. So all of the processes in this art the art has been prepared so that if you're utilizing it in your graphics program, there's not going to be a lot of editing. And I'll bring down a piece of clip art just to kind of show you how we construct things to give you an idea. But there's a lot of variety in terms of the clip art that we're using is what I would call like categories. So for instance, these are design elements. And so what you're seeing here is recent first. So I've got it set to view by recent first. So this is the clip art that was added in the most recent design drop. And what this is, these are the design elements right here from the design drop right here. So if you go to the design drop, that's all sorted by newest first. And you'll notice, kind of look at the clip art here. If you go to the clip art, these are all the parts and pieces. So if you're one of these people that likes to really go in and experiment and go in and, really make things your own and add parts and pieces and really get in there and mix it up and merge a couple designs together, you have all what we call design elements. Incidentally, if you go into clip art and you just type in, for instance, elements or element, you're going to get 1900 design elements. You're going to show up. So here's all the parts and pieces that we've used for templates. Now they're also going to show up under other things, like they show up under Shield or whatever the specific is. But if you're just looking for design elements, that's pretty handy. Another kind of power user thing, if you want to kind of drill it down even more, if you're looking for a design element that's like, say, a splatter, you could go in and look for a splatter, or maybe a weathered overlay, or something like that. You could go and do a search for that. One of my favorites is backgrounds. So if I type in background, I'm going to see all these wonderful backgrounds that I can use for sublimation or making a sign. You've got all these great little backgrounds, and believe it or not, these are all vector. Even though it looks like a photo, this entire image is vector because all these effects are done with gradients and blends and mesh fills and these pretty high-end sophisticated features in both CorelDRAW and Adobe Illustrator. So, don't count out all the design elements for doing custom, because that's one of the really handy things about GraphicsFlow. And if you're doing, like, say, a banner for a sports team, you have all these great little background banner layouts. And so if you needed to do state champs, you could take a font in GraphicsFlow and maybe even start with the template already and just type it in, and you've got your little state championship banner. So that's pretty slick. But at the end of the day, what most people are using clipart for is, hey, I need a tiger mascot, right? So tiger, there's a tiger mascot. I'm just going to download this mascot right here. Just going to say download. I'll download the CDR version. I could just as easily download the Adobe Illustrator version of the file, and we'll just call it tiger here, and I'll hit save. And then I'm just going to click on open to open that up into Corel. So here is a typical clipart image to kind of show you how we construct things. Everything's set up in layers. So if you move that layer apart right there, you've got an entire layer there. You've also got a layer here. So there's actually white sitting on purple, sitting on orange. So it's stacked in layers. So what is it? It makes it really easy to recolor things. So if you come down here and you just want to recolor this to, some off-the-wall color, like make it gold, all you have to do is select it, and now you've got gold, which is kind of LSU colors, right? So that's part of the reason we do that. Now, this particular image, this section right here, these sections are combined. If you break them apart, then you can go in and select all the individual parts here if you want to recolor those. But if you have objects inside of here, like that object right here, you would have to recombine that. So you'd have to select that section and you'd have to recombine it. So the reason we do it that way is so that you can recolor these images. We're anticipating how people would actually edit this, and we know people just want to grab that layer and select it and pick a new color. And so it's how we create the artwork, so it's very flexible for you guys to use. And we'll go and pull up another piece of clip art that's a little bit different. We'll do one of the backgrounds, and so you can see how that artwork is constructed. And this is kind of power user type stuff, but it's really handy to know. So I'm going to download this background, and we'll just download that into a folder. And what I'll do is open that one up as well. And this file is constructed a little bit differently. And you'll notice if I click on this background, you notice these little buttons are right here. In Adobe Illustrator, you would utilize what we call masking. In CorelDRAW, you'd utilize what's called power clipping. And so these objects right here are they're actually built into, there's a rectangle, and they're actually power clipped into that rectangle. So if I right click on this and I say extract, I can pull all the parts and pieces out. And this is going to maintain like grouping. So if I ungroup this, if I just wanted to grab that part of the design, or if I wanted to maybe just marquee select this part, you have all the parts and pieces. And this is because we power clipped it into that rectangle. So it's masked it off. In Illustrator, there's just a mask around the whole thing. Now, if you wanted to maybe reposition or recolor part of these elements, that's where you could click on edit. And so if I click on edit, it's not pulling it out, but it's giving me access to all of these parts. And if I click on ungroup, what's going to happen is I can go into all the grouped elements within this design and reposition them. So maybe I just wanted to delete that and put this over here in the corner, and maybe delete this because we're going to put some text right across here. And maybe I want to even go to the level of maybe recoloring this a little bit. I can do all of that from like right directly inside the design. And when I'm all done, I just say finish. So it's very clever how we've created this artwork. So it's very, very flexible for you. So when we talk about the word clip art, I think clip art's a little bit oversimplified for what we're offering. These are design elements, they're backgrounds, they're set up with masks, they're constructed a very specific way that makes it easy for you folks to output. And if you're, doing vinyl graphics, which a lot of you do, you're typically going to have, if I type in like a mascot here, we'll just type in bulldog, you're typically going to have multiple versions of a mascot. So depending upon what your process is, maybe you want to cut this out in one color. If you download this, this is probably going to be the image that you're gonna output to the cutter right here. And so we'll click on open, and we'll take a look at that in wireframe view. So you can see that's just a cut ready file. Now, on the other hand, if you're doing artwork and maybe you're utilizing screen printing, you might want to just do this simple design right here that appears to be 4 colors. And so we'll just download that one and open it. Let's see what we got going on here. So you've got layers right here, layer, 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 layer. So let's count the colors in here. You got 1 color, 2 color, 3 color, 4 color with white, 5 color. If you wanted to combine these in Corel, you could just grab the dropper and just go over and select it, or you could shift select it. Now it's 4 color design, or maybe it's going to be now a 3 color design. So you have a lot of flexibility. For screen printing, this is important because you're going to want to try to limit the number of colors that are utilized in the design. But maybe you're doing, full on digital with direct to film or sublimation or DTG, then you might pull this file down because it's got even more colors in it. And from here, now you can really go crazy because you can add gradients and blurs and all kinds of interesting type effects to these and really bring this file to life. And so if I come over here and open this one, and I wanted to go in and maybe add a little bit of a gradient to that layer right there, I can just go over here and add a gradient to it. Just click on the little paint bucket and say, hey, let's just have a little bit of a gradient, and we'll go from top to bottom, and now we've added a gradient. So the way that we construct the clip art just makes it really easy for you guys to edit, and that's why we like to utilize the word production ready, because it's ready to go. You don't have to go through and do a lot of extra work. You're not going to find intersecting paths in the artwork. Everything's layered or grouped in a way that makes it really easy to edit. We've done the lion's share of the work for you. So in terms of searching for clip art, we talked a little bit about some kind of tips and tricks in there in terms of searching, but you always have the option of going into categories. So a lot of times folks are like anticipating where things belong. And when we set up the keyword database for GraphicsFlow, we used multiple keywords across the database. So every clip art image doesn't necessarily have one keyword. So for instance, bulldogs are also going to be keyworded under mascots. So if you want to see every mascot, 2,500 of them, you can see them all. But if you just want to see bulldogs, you're going to go down to bulldog. Now, if you want to go to category, you come down here, you can go to category and say, all right, I just want to see artwork that's related to, we'll go to mascots, and I just want to see armadillos. So now you can go in, looks like don't have any armadillos that also match bulldog. So let's get rid of the word bulldog. So we don't have any bulldog armadillos. So you always want to make sure your filter results are cleared. But here's, just some armadillo designs. And I had a customer years ago who said, hey, I need an armadillo that's dressed up like a cowboy. And I'm like, well, you know what? You just happen to hit the lottery because we've got one of those. Because that was their high school mascot. Isn't that crazy? So I believe it was the state of Texas, if I'm not mistaken. So, you've got a lot of latitude in searching by filter results, but if you're not sure how something's categorized, you can just go into, a category and, say, hey, there's the Pi sign for Pi Day. So, which is March 14th, if you don't remember, or science and robotics, if you want to see more sciencey type things in here. So this is I think one of the better ways to pin down some more specific type art. And isn't that a cool image? That is a really cool image. I love that image. Now, something that's really important is, with the new stock art customizer, if you're running an elite plan, you can customize this clip art before you even bring it down. So watch, you have a little button right here that says customize, and then you have a little button right here that says customize. And so if you click on that and you want to just change your colors here on your clip art, or, you can't do things like resize it, rescale it, or mirror it, and those kind of things. But the main thing that people are going to want to do is recolor it. So if you just click on this and you want to recolor that to pink, hit apply. If you want to recolor that to maybe white, because make it a one color design. There you go. And so you can recolor it before you even download it, which I just think that's awesome. And so now when you save the file, you're going to save it into onto your GraphicsFlow account, because now you don't have to download it. You're just basically taking this and moving it over to a stored folder. So you've got the edited piece of artwork. You're saving the edited piece of artwork. And so I'm going to just save it over here into Customizer Designs. So that edit is now saved in a folder that I chose. And now I can download the PDF file if I'm using Illustrator, or the CDR file if I'm using Corel. And if you use something like Canva, you can even download a PNG file. And at the same, you've got your own customized piece of clip art colored to the way you want it. So when you bring it into your project, it's already colored, which I think that is an absolutely awesome feature in my opinion. So I actually really like that image. I would wear that. I got to figure out maybe you guys can send me some ideas for some fun copy for that, because I think I'm going to cut that out at vinyl over the weekend and make a t-shirt out of it, but I'm just not sure what I want it to say. I'll do some research on that. So there you go. So the clip art is, something that we're really well known for. I think, do a pretty tremendous job with clip art, because a lot of what we're doing is designing clip art for merch, for products. It's not designed, you can use it for other things, but it's the kind of things that you'd expect to see on a t-shirt or a sign. And so we design it into that with that in mind. Now, if you go up here to design ideas, kind of as a synonym for a template, our thinking always has been, these are starting points. So where you start and where you end up are going to be completely different places in a lot of cases. And one of the things that I think is really important is, from a psychological point of view, is to think layout versus subject matter. And so when I'm looking for a template, I don't really care what I just don't care what it says in the middle of it. I'm just looking for a layout, and I'll prove the point here. If I go over here and I grab this design right here, and I just like the layout, it's got the circular text, it's got a cool font, there's got a little bit more text on here, got some design elements going on. This is just a layout. There's nothing more to it. And so if I check this layout right here, and now that I have the customizer, I can just click on customize. It's just not going to be a big deal for me to change this into like a high school design. So here's a good example of like editing a template. I just typed in the word auto because I wanted to see I was looking for some kind of industrial type looking automotive graphics. And so what I did is I just clicked on this particular template right here, and then I clicked on customize. And my vision for this design was like a welding company. I was doing this, I was recording a video, make a t-shirt design in under 3 minutes. So I went over here, I turned this into the word Premiere. We'll hit Premiere right there. And where it says garage, I'm gonna add that right there. So it's 2 layers. And then where it said repair and parts, I changed that to service, hit enter. And right over here, did the same thing, service, and then down here I made this say welding. So really super easy. So we've got that changed. And then I wanted to change the date in here, so I said 1966. I could just turn that off if I didn't want that in there. So I could just mute it. And I kind of like the date in there. I think it's kind of a traditional kind of a patch looking design. So next thing up, I'd want to change out the clip art. So you're gonna do is just go down here where it says clip art. And right here, I'm just going to click on that clip art image, and I'm going to say replace. And I wanted to kind of give it a, kind of a welding look. So I typed in weld, and the first thing I did is I tried these welding torches here. And I wanted to see what's going on. And I don't know, they're just too thin. They don't really jump out at me. But I liked the way that these welding torches looked, and they just fell into a perfect place. I don't have to make them bigger or smaller. They just kind of lucked out that way. So I'm going to hit apply. But the thing is, this would be a great point to start kind of consolidating some of the colors. So you notice there's this color right here. I could just make that another color that was already in the template. So I just merged that with this color right here. And so I kind of cut my colors down a little bit. And then now I'm going to do kind of the final colorization. So I'm going to take the black and I made that into navy blue. Hit apply. And I took the red and I'm going to make that into a teal. And then I'm going to kind of further reduce the colors because I'm going to take a couple of these and I can merge a couple of these up. So I'm going to take the darkest gray and merge the darkest gray with the second darkest gray. So we're going to click on that. Here's the darkest gray. Here's the second darkest gray. And so I'm just kind of reducing the colors. So once I get this file done, I'm going to save it. But this is a template. I can use this template over and over again. So if I wanted to market to maybe other welding companies or put a lawnmower in there, whatever, this is my template now. And so when you save this design, what you're going to do, I'm just going to save it. I created a little folder for Premiere Welding right here. And I'm going to click on Save Design. So download a production file, PDF, CDR, doesn't make any difference. If I'm going to use CorelDRAW 2020 or lower, I'm going to have to download a PDF. If I'm using CorelDRAW 2021 or higher, I can download the live CDR file because all these files are saved in CorelDRAW 2021 format. If you're using any other vector graphics program, you can just download the PDF. So you can add it to an art approval. So if I wanted to add that to an art approval, I could do it right here. But I want to show you one of the most, I think, powerful features of the stock design template editing, which is this. If you create that design, now you made it your own, it's super easy to go back and just do re-edits. Because if I go down here to My Art, and I go into that folder, Premiere Welding, and I want to go in and make changes to this. Let's see, where's the one I just did a minute ago, right here. This is this variation. All I have to do is just click on the little button and say Customized, and we're back to square one on the customizer, and all the text is still live. So if I want to come over here and change this from Premiere Welding's service to Acme Welding Service, that's going to look weird with the script text. Maybe not. No, that's not the worst thing I've seen. But you can change that to Acme. And we want to localize the colors. Maybe take this teal and move that to, hey, we're going to go crazy. We're going to move that to a bright gold. It's going to be crazy looking. Actually, it looks great. I didn't expect that. But you can go in and make these changes and use these as templates over and over again. When you go to save it now, because you've made changes, when you go to save it, you're going to click on Save Changes, and you're not going to update the original file. You're going to save it as a new customized design. And I'll just put it back in that Premiere folder. And so for those of you that are, kind of used to doing editing in, say, CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator, I would argue it's just much easier to do your initial edits to the templates and the customizer. And then if you have to do additional things like you want to change kerning or you want to add or delete, maybe put in the logo from, your own logo, like your own bulldog that you have, you can do that offline in your vector graphics program of choice. But just getting the initial design set up, this is just such an easy way to do it. And what's fun to me about these is now you can add them to art approvals. So you can create little galleries of your art. And so I have a little art approval I've just kind of been working on over time. I keep adding things to it. And I created a little art approval. It's got these kind of corporate patch designs in it. And I use this in my demos all the time. I actually have this particular one embedded into my art portal. Now I can add that design I just did right in here. Just go over here and say, hey, add it from my art. It's in that Premiere folder right here. I'm going to go and select it. Now I've added it in here, and let's go in and maybe we can go in and do, change the background color, but it's just a really easy way to go in and add additional art and things into your basically a showcase for your customers. And the other thing you could do is if you wanted to add additional stock art here, maybe there's a new patch layout we just did, which we did a whole bunch of new ones. This one's kind of cool. You can go over here and just say add files, and you can add that one in there too. So it's just kind of up to you, where you want to put them. So the only thing is I do want to rearrange the order because I want to put this at the top. So we're going to put that at the top. And I think I'm going to move this down one. And so the first thing they could see is that. And honestly, I think this one's better. And so I'm just going to delete it. So you always have the latitude of deleting that. And so we'll go and delete that. And move this one down. So these kind of coordinate. So this is what you'd send out to a prospective client. You don't have to send this out to Premier Welding Services. You can send this out to just any other small business and say, hey, this is the level we work at. Instead of doing your boring logo, we can go in and create kind of some themed graphics, like a merchandising program that we can build around, so you can actually wear things that, you know, your employees are proud to wear. Not that your logo's terrible, but nobody's going to get excited about it. People get excited about a cool graphic that kind of looks a little bit like retail. And this one, you know, for embroidery, you got to get rid of the checkers. But if you got rid of the checkers, that'd make a pretty sweet little patch there. I'd have to reproportion it a little bit. I'd want to make the welding torches probably a little bit bigger. I might get rid of the little electrical lightning bolts in there, but this would make a great little patch. Probably wouldn't drop shadow it, but this would be a really easy design to reproportion for an embroidered patch, or possibly even an applique. So if you kind of get the gist on the design ideas, the stock art customizer just gives you so much more flexibility. And it was interesting. I was working with a brand new client yesterday, and I copied him on this art proposal that I did. And he put a comment in here. Let's see, there's a couple comments. He said, make Premiere Blue as well. Okay, sit tight, I'll update the file. So we were just pretending he was an end user. And so all I had to do is just go back to the template and make the color variation to blue and just add it to here. And then you can see the original plus the variation blue. And there's, looks like there's another comment in here. Hey, Jeff, I used your file in our webcast. Welcome to the GraphicsFlow team. That's the other comment that's in there. And he actually called me today and that they did not waste any time getting the art portal into their website. He literally had it on their website. It was crazy how quick they had it onto their website. What is it? Visual promotions.net. I think this is their website. Yeah, I mean, I signed him up, and then within like 30 minutes, he had the art portal built into his site. Oh, they even updated it. So now they've added this. So isn't that great? So there you go. You know, this our design layer library, simple as design templates. How cool is that? So I think they did so search over 6,500 of our customizable designs, select designs of interest, add to cart, submit the design request. Our team of professional designers will quickly customize your design request. What a great lead generator, right? So in terms of like offline editing, we talked about like online editing, and you know, some of the things that you can do. But let's download a couple of these files, and I'll show you, you know, kind of just some offline things you can do if you're using. We'll do it in CorelDRAW, Illustrator, and then also do it in Inkscape, the freeware program, so you can kind of see what's going on here. So if I go to a design, and let's say I want to go and edit it and do some kind of advanced editing on it, okay? And I have the ability to do that quite easily in, you know, the graphics platform of my choice, but there's some rules. So rule number one is if I download this file as a CDR file and I open it up in Corel, and this will work with Corel 2018 or higher. Vikings, what is that? We're going to make it Vikings seniors, right? So I'm going to say Vikings concept. I'm just going to download it. And we're going to open that file up in Corel. And just show you how it's constructed real quick. It's pretty easy. You just got a weathered overlay right there. So you got a weathered overlay on top. The text, you know, if you just hit Control-Shift-T here, you know, text is all live. So if I wanted to change that to central, you know, central Bulldogs, we could do that. You have multiple layers of text here. So if you're going to change this to lacrosse, you can change it to lacrosse. You know, you can add things, delete things. You've got quite a bit of latitude in terms of working with this file, and all the text, you know, everything's live here. And then you can, you can go in here and recolor it, and you have, all the freedom that you'd ever want to go in and make changes to the file. But I think I'd argue that it's just easier to do that in the stock art customizer. And changing colors is a lot easier too. And swapping clip art out is easier too. If you're used to, utilizing the Smart Designer add-on software for CorelDRAW, you could utilize that to do your editing as well. But you have full editing level control, and these are all vector files. One little trick though, if you're going to do a weathered overlay, just select the graphic, and then you can just take the overlay, and you want to group the graphic, and then you can just power clip it into the graphic, and that way it's not a box sitting over the time, it's just power clipped. And you can even recolor this overlay to the background color if you just right click and go edit, power clip, and then just right click on the color you just changed the background to. So you got to click the overlay. That'll make the overlay in the orange, and then it's masked through. So that's pretty handy. So that's kind of how you would do it in Corel. Let's open up Adobe Illustrator. We'll show you kind of how we would do this in Adobe. And you have a lot of flexibility in terms of Illustrator being able to do substantially exactly the same things that you're doing in Corel. There's a couple things in Illustrator that are easier to do than in Corel. There's a couple things in Corel that are easier to do than Illustrator. So it's just, like a personal preference. It's whatever program you're more comfortable with. I've been using Illustrator a lot longer than I've been using Corel. I had to kind of get back into it, for doing, training and webcasts. And, I think it's the more challenging program to learn, but I kind of pat myself on the back a little bit that I've been patient in learning it. So here's that design template here. And it's a little bit different in Illustrator in terms of just like navigation. So one of the things, like, I think a lot of times people are used to using the little hand tool in Corel to move things around. Illustrator, you use a little artboard tool here. And so you can use the little artboard tool to move the artboard, and you still have like the zoom function, but the zoom doesn't go from center out. It goes up and down. Basically it's scrolling up and down. That's the way the behavior is set up. I believe you can change that, but you have the same kind of functions here as far as, being able to zoom things on. And in Illustrator, when you zoom wherever your zoom point is, it just kind of lets you do that. And then I use the artboard feature to kind of recenter things up, which is pretty handy. So once you have that, you select things. If you select the file right there, you'll notice that it's all grouped. So same thing as Corel. Just right click, we're just going to ungroup it. On this weathered overlay right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide it for now. I could have done that in Corel too. I just moved it off the page a little bit. And so if you go to your layers, you just go to your layers. All your layers are right here. It looks like the layer with that overlay is this one right here. So I'm just turning it off for now. We don't need it. Same thing for changing the text. Just grab your text tool, highlight over the text you want to change. Central, right there. Same thing here. Here's one kind of neat little advantage of Illustrator. These are set up as styles. So if we change this to lacrosse, the style changes it. I don't have to change both layers simultaneously. And we'll move that down there, and we'll change this to 23. So we'll change that to 23 right there. And we'll move this over here. I don't really need that. I'm just going to delete that. So we've got our basic little design set up there. And what we're going to do is do some recoloring. So the easiest way to recolor in Adobe is if you go and open up your swatches, you get on here to your swatches, you want to turn that on. And the colors from the swatches are going to come when we open this Illustrator file up. All the colors in the design are going to come up because we've kind of pre-created the swatch. But if you want to change the colors, if you go over to one of your libraries, one of your palette libraries, in this case, I have the Pantone library set up. Kind of a controversial thing in the newer version of Illustrator, they no longer have their deal with Pantone. And so you lose your Pantone color swatches unless you pay for the Pantone Connect subscription, which I think is around $90 a year. As a workaround, if you just go to the internet and you download the Freetone color palette, that is the Pantone color palette, but the colors are renamed to Simple Tone 123 for Athletic Gold versus Pantone 123. But these are all spot colors. These will create color separations. And so if I wanted to change a color, I would just go over here and see, we'll make the gold purple. Oh no, we'll make the gold orange. So I'm just going to click on this orange right here. And you see how that gets added to the swatch book. And then I can just select that swatch and then go over here to say merge. So we just merge those colors. And the same thing for the central, I can just make that blue. And we'll go over here and click on blue to add that color. And then we'll click on purple and we'll merge those. So pretty straightforward. And then in terms of like the weathered overlay, what you do in Illustrator, I'm going to select the whole graphic and then group it. And then when I'm going to make sure everything's grouped. So you just hit Control A and group the whole thing. And then what you're going to do is, remember we hid that layer. So I'm going to take the layer and turn it back on. So let's see right there. Select everything in this design, and then under transparency, you can just say make mask. It's kind of like power clipping in Corel. Turn the little clip thing off, and then say invert mask, and then that's masked in there, and it's knocking through, so it knocks through the background. And that's, to me, that's an advantage of Illustrator over Corel, where you have that true masking versus power clip. I have to change the color of the background. Now for screen printing, when you go to print out a color separation, you wouldn't necessarily print out that separation. For white, you would just turn it off, so it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing direct-to-garment printing or DTG, this is really handy because that white knocks straight through. I don't have to do anything special or mask it out. It's just done automatically. That's pretty handy. Let's change the background color on this real quick. Just go down here to document setup. This is kind of some of the things that are a little bit trickier in Illustrator. So you got to change this background color to a new color. You got to click on simulated paper color, and then you got to hit this edit artboards function to change color. But you can see that that's knocked out in there. So that's the basic process of editing the file in Adobe. It's quite easy, and that's because of the way we constructed the artwork. It's just really easy to make these changes. You can add and delete clip art and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'd argue it's easier to do this part in the stock art customizer and then just do any final edits you want in Illustrator. So we'll do one more little application. I'll use the Inkscape program. I really am quite fond of this program. It's for just a simple little vector graphics program that's a freeware program. I think it's pretty handy. It does lack quite a few things that are, beneficial of CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator. For instance, it can't produce spot color separations. So if you're going to color separate artwork, you'd have to do it manually by copying things over to separate pages and recoloring it. It's not particularly convenient, but let's see what I've got for a file here. Let's go ahead and let's see what I've got for a PDF. I'm sure I've got something on my desktop here. But it's a pretty nifty little vector graphics program. It can't open up Illustrator or Corel files and edit live text, so that's one of the kind of disadvantages of it. But you can do a lot of pretty nifty little things in it. Let's go to my art, and we'll take one of the designs I customized, and we'll download a PDF of it. So let's go over here to Central Cougars. I'm sure I've got one in here, and that I've been working on. Let's see here. Yep, we'll take this design right here. So I think this is one I customized, pretty sure. Yeah, download PDF. So I'm gonna download that PDF, and the text in this design is not going to be live. So, when you download this file, and you're gonna download the PDF, you're not gonna have live text in here to edit. So you'd want to do any kind of text changes you're gonna do right directly in the stock art customizer. And then I would just go to File, and I would go to Open, and locate the file. Bulldogs right here. What did we call that? It must have been, is that the one that we were working on? Hit OK. So there's the vector art. And same thing, you've got the weathered overlay cooking over here. And you can go and mute that too. Just go over here and just turn that off for now too. And you can, go in here and recolor. Handy little feature. If you're going to recolor, and you just say, go down here, select same fill and stroke color, and pick a new color right here. It'll recolor, but these are not spot colors. So if you're going to print out film, you can't, there's no way to print out spot color separations. But just for doing basic, editing, you have all that same kind of editing capability. You can go down here and, manipulate and delete, recolor manually if you want to, do something that's a little bit more, let's see, we'll make this kind of that blue color there. Maybe make this gray. So just select that color, edit, same fill and stroke, and make that kind of this medium gray. So same kind of things, resizing. If you're going to do kind of that overlay function you'd want to group this, and then you want to turn on the overlay. It took me a while to figure out how to do this in Inkscape. It was a little tricky. So we'll go over here and we'll turn that back on, and you select it. Let's see if I remember how to do this. You have to go to Make Mask. So there's a little feature. It's called Make Mask. I have to go back and watch my own video to remember how to do this. I thought it was over here under Filters. Make Mask. Sometimes it's just like right in your face and you don't really see it. Let's see here. Here we go. Mask. And you say Set Inverse Mask. And then once you, let's see, hold on. I'm going to undo that. Oh, you have to change the color of the mask. So you gotta take the mask, you gotta make it black. So you go over and click on black. So the mask has to be black. Then you select it, and then you go to mask and you click on Set Inverse Mask, and then it knocks it through. So that's it. So I just did the same, basically exact same thing in all three applications, and the net result is identical. The only difference, like in Inkscape, I don't get color separations where I can just go and print film from it. I'd have to create what's called manual color separation. So I'd have to take every color, recolor each layer black, put it on separate pages, put separation marks on it. It's not optimal. I do have a video on our YouTube channel that shows you how to do that. So it is possible to do it, but it's just not convenient like it would be in Illustrator or Corel. So there's the basic idea behind, editing designs. So every single month, we're going to do a new design drop, and every month there's going to be new artwork that we're going to load in the system. We do that usually on the first or sometimes a couple days early, and that new artwork is always going to be at the top of your list. If you want to see artwork that you previously downloaded, what you would do is you'd go down here to Downloaded, and in a sense, these become your favorites, don't they? Because these are the things you previously downloaded. If you're downloading art, you get X amount of downloads per month based on what plan you're on. It only counts the first time you download it. So if I download this file and I download it 100 times after that, or anybody on my team, it's only going to count once in terms of your download. So it's just the first time, and the green check here indicates that this file has been previously downloaded. You'll also notice, we'll go down here to, not downloaded isn't super handy because there's so many files, but we'll go back here to All Designs. When you're searching, you always have a latitude to search by category. And that's important because, like, awareness, there's, if you just want to look at like cancer awareness, you could look at cancer awareness designs. Now you could also come over here and you could just type in cancer too and see anything that's related to cancer. But here's I think one of the most useful ways to search. Instead of searching by category or subcategory, which you can certainly do that, but style, I think it's really handy to look by style. So if I went over here and I went to Style and I selected, say, Patches, and I'm seeing 100% of the patches, but I only wanted to see patches that are part of hockey, I can type in hockey and then hit Enter, and then here's all my hockey patches. But maybe I want to look at just all the hockey designs, right? Click on the X, and now I'm back to all the hockey designs. So look how fast that is. I mean, it's lightning quick. Everything we did here in class in the app, every single thing we did, editing the template, doing all the searching, editing the clip art, all of that you could have done on a Mac computer, on a PC, a tablet, or your phone. And I did a design for a client on my phone at the airport one day, and she was just like absolutely blown away. She was like, she couldn't believe, I was on the phone with her. She needed a hot rod design, And so I just did it on the phone. She called in looking for another vendor that's no longer in business. And she said, I need this tie rod design. I said, hey, I'll do it on my phone for you real quick. And I just created it, sent her a little art request, our art approval with the design. And she was like really excited. And she actually signed up for GraphicsFlow right after we got done talking. But it's a mobile friendly app. It's not as convenient doing this on the phone because you don't have as much screen real estate. But in a pinch, you can absolutely edit all these designs on your phone. And it works great on a tablet. I do it on my tablet all the time. So that's the basic concept behind stock art. You have design ideas, you have clip art, you have fonts. You now have the ability, if you have a GraphicsFlow Elite plan, to go and edit the clip art and the stock designs in the cloud. And then you always have the latitude of doing further editing to the vector artwork in the graphics program of your choice. So thanks for coming and hanging out with me on the webcast today, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.